All right, so here we are, post-game, in a parking lot at Cedar Crest. We were planning on doing this on the stadium. The band got to perform, so we moved elsewhere to just post-game stuff from the Cedar Crest band. There was also, and so there's a lot of stuff going on here in Lebanon to the 13th episode of the Bulldog Hour season, and we're location broadly getting to do this once we got it collected and moved. We are in a parking lot under Justin's tailgate, so we'll see how this goes, but we have a little bit to talk about. Thankfully, we're getting to talk about a Wilson victory.
Yeah, like you said, the game took a while. One of the guys near me during the game was like, when a football game and a track meet broke out, but it wasn't a real quick night, and then we hit. It's not hot, but it's warmer than it has been. Cramping became an issue.
It's 10:08. It's still 70 degrees outside,
right.
so
warm,
humid. There was some, but Wilson got the W, and that's
absolutely
all that matters in the end. It was 49-24, and most of the Cedar Crest points came after a Wilson mistake, whether it was a blown coverage or a fumble, a turnover. Cedar Crest had a tough time going when Wilson pinned them deep. They couldn't get much momentum going, especially.
So, like you mentioned,
for sure,
Wilson was able to fumble. And that difference in the game. Also, there were a number of where Cedar Crest would make a play. Would make a big play and take in.
Yeah, now the Falcons certainly couldn't get momentum.
There were only maybe a few minutes in terms of real time where it felt like Cedar Crest would have momentum, and then Wilson would grab back with usually a big play by Jones or Bradley.
Yeah, this was certainly a wacky game because, honestly, I never really felt that it was in depth for Wilson.
No.
But it also, they just couldn't put Cedar Crest away to make it a resounding victory like the last 2 weeks against Manor and McCaskey.
Right. Without some of those mistakes, we field lost fumbles today.
Right, and 3 of them in the first half of the first quarter.
Right. So like
a slow start.
Right. Now, they had some mistakes too. They couldn't, Cedar Crest couldn't seem to catch the
having issues with that.
Times they there were some issues. We recovered off of a kick, not like when the kick turned, the guy just never was able to actually pick it up. So it was an interesting night, but Wilson was able to do enough and way more than enough and come out victory, which, hey, that's the goal.
Yes, 49-24. I apologize if there's some stream issues. We unfortunately don't have cell connectivity either. But Wilson 17 first down, Cedar Crest 10, net yards rushing, Wilson 375 to Cedar Crest 119. So it was a very ground-heavy game, a combined between the two teams, 66 rushing attempts. Not a lot of passing to go around, but each team was able to score through the air as well. Brad Hoffman connected with DJ Flight for Wilson's touchdown. Time of possession was pretty even, but again, you mentioned the early issues with the fumbles was the big problem for Wilson.
Yeah, we'd be remiss if we don't break the big plays by Cam Jones, though.
Right.
Absolutely ridiculous. Another punt return for a touchdown.
Which ties in for the Wilson season single of 4, which was set by Jimmy Brooks in 2012.
Right. And was was that maybe 3 last 2 weeks? Did he have 2?
No, he had
got
one in the
pushed out
close.
at-
Yeah, he had one where he went out
And
of
he
the
had
six.
one called back for a penalty. And really, there were 2 penalties on it. So, like, a couple shots that get called back. But he also had a kick return for a touchdown today.
Right, and that was his second this season.
And a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, so he had the hat trick tonight: punt return, kick return, rushing. If he could have added a receiving one, that would have been an interesting one for the Wilson record book.
When
How
he really had
often?
a catch across the middle. Now, he was a long way from the end zone, but whenever he gets the ball in his hands, you never know exactly where he may end up in the end zone.
So we mentioned a lot of rushing yards combined in the game. The teams combined for nearly 500 rushing yards. Wilson had 375. Most of them actually came from the Wilson quarterback, Brad Hoffman, carried 14 times for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns, with a 60-yard score.
And that fight for the pylon kind of.
Yeah,
That's cool to see.
he emphasized the last one with a nifty dive. What was that, in the fourth quarter? Beginning of the fourth quarter. Jaden Jones carried 23 times for 162 yards. And then Cam also had 2 carries for 14 yards and a score.
Team back to back. I love that play too. They went like heavy wildcat kind of formation, 2 plays in a row. They cleared the way for him. He didn't end zone anyone.
Yeah, looking over the statistics, like we mentioned at the top, unfortunately Aiden Richards was injured for Cedar Crest in the second half, but he carried 13 times for 101 yards and a touchdown, and man, was he impressive.
Yeah, he's a stud, and we heard that from Coach Doms before the game, all week really. He's been saying the 24, and because of the torn
And then
jersey,
42,
it was shredded. It was like ripped in half. He had to change into 42, but Aiden Richards was all over the place on offense and defense. He scored a defensive touchdown again. I think the 6th straight week, right? He scored a pick 6.
Yep.
Was right. Maybe the winner last week. I don't know. Right. I don't know if that was the order of their scores last week. He scored offensive touchdown today, and he also had some really nice long runs. He's Coach Dom's. He may be one of the best, if not the best, records you would see, like that he's seen this season, or athletes, But yeah, he flies around. So hopefully, he's able to get back and get back on the field for them. I think they have Penn Manor and McCaskey as their last 2 games. So hopefully, Aiden Richards can get healthy for them and they can, get back on the field those last 2 games.
Yeah, just trying to look over the stats, see if anything else jumps out. But we got to see Ben Rada continue to improve on kickoffs, and also we got the punt tonight.
Yeah, it was really one punt, but both punts were nice. Like he had the
Right,
punt twice.
he had the punt twice.
Both punts were very nice, and I think even with penalty, I think it ended up being 1 yard difference.
So he only went 37 yards, but it was inside the 20.
Right, I think it rounded to 15.
He did exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah.
Brad did punt 2 times, totaling 76 yards, and 2 of his went down inside the 20 as well. So a little bit of special teams and field position throughout that as well. But special teams really stole the show all night long with punt return, the kick return, kickoff fumble recovery.
Yeah.
So that facet of the game was really clicking this evening. We wanted to be able to talk to a few of the players, but because we were shuffling around, leaving here at the end, we didn't get to grab anyone before they head to the locker room. We're hoping to talk with defensive coordinator Ernie Wolver. Well, we haven't caught up with him in a while, but one of the players that we wanted to grab was the cornerback Eric Jackson.
Oh yeah.
He made a huge play at the beginning of the third quarter.
Talk about momentum, right? Wilson was up.
Or was that second quarter?
I think it was the second quarter. Yeah. So second quarter, and Wilson's up, but
yes,
Aiden Richards. I think it was Aiden Richards. It might be someone else, but I think Aiden Richards. And Eric Jackson across the field catches him and takes him down at the 8-yard line, and then so it's 1st and goal 8. Ends up being 4th and goal from the 9.
I was gonna say, I think Wilson took him back
1st down and then nothing on the next 2 plays, and pulled him to a field goal. And you said like heck of a play. This before all that. You said heck of a play by Eric Jackson. And at the end of that, I was able to send you a message. I was like, that was a 4-point hustle play.
Yeah, it was a huge play
by Eric Jackson. And one of those moments where he gets the huge momentum from a huge take him down inside the 10. then Wilson kind of stole momentum back, even though they scored 3
Right.
by holding them to the field instead of giving up the touchdown. So a hustle play, that never giving up. Like obviously we like to see not, and we would like to see
Not sprint free at all.
sprint free up the middle, but like, the cornerback on the opposite side of the hook off and chase him down and
yeah, one of the better defensive plays. That's something you can add to the highlight film because, like you said, potentially you're holding over, but even holding them to 4-point swing.
4-point hustle play, which is
And it was 28-7 at the time, so that could have cut the lead in half. It could have ended up being 14. So huge play there at the end of the second quarter.
Second half. So
right.
It was 28-14, and them getting the ball at 28-10, and they were getting the ball.
Well, and they moved right downfield to start the second half as well.
That's huge.
So it was a huge play. Right. I mean, we've talked about it a lot.
Kept it a 3-possession.
After the Wilson lead was cut to 28-17, Cameron Jones got his hands on the next kickoff and took it 91 yards.
And it went like he had the 10 pinned up against the sideline, and he just took it and off and went.
Well, and you being up on the press box, you're up there. You're all on the other team's sideline on the road games, and you get to listen to the crowd and opposing coaches, and they're offering you some draft picks to take Cam Jones.
Yeah, someone that was standing near me offered me a few first-round picks for Cam Jones. I politely declined. He asked me if he was a senior. I informed him he is not.
He is not.
But he's like, man, and it was funny. We heard some from the Jones family, thunder and lightning, and that was kind of reflected in a sense. Like Jaden had some hard runs, which was fun because he can get out there and can run away from the best of them, but he also was getting there, lowering his shoulder and running over guys tonight.
Yeah, he still managed to average 7 yards a carry, again with 162 net yards.
Heck of a thunder,
he earned that one. He was earning. Yeah, he got in for one score. So yeah, Cameron Jones, the Lightning, Jaden Jones, the Thunder, which I think last time we heard that for its running backs, at least, was made popular by the Giants in the early 2000s, I think, with T.E. Bard and Ron Dane. So, I don't know, there's not too much else for us to add here. We're out of our element doing this live on the road instead of at home in the studio. So we don't have a lot of access to the things that we normally would do. Obviously, I think our play of the game has to be Cam Jones. I feel like you can't go any other way. I mean, obviously, his brother Jaden had a great game. Brad, with his feet tonight, he was making moves all night long. There's always a handful of guys that be up for that. But with what Cam was able to do tonight, we didn't even mention that one of his punt returns. Did we mention call back for the touchdown?
Call back for
so he had one heck of a game.
It's funny because the same person who offered me the draft pick also told me, like, early game after the punt return for a touchdown, he had said, he's like, I heard that he's going to try and keep it away from the one. But
I mean, it's tough to do.
Right, it was, and it wasn't like they were punting directly to him.
No, they were low or they were
They
bouncing.
were kicking it to him. You needed it. Like, they were overturned. And like I said, up into the sideline.
By the coaching staff, but Jen on the ground don't necessarily want to pick it up. Just bad things can happen. One event tonight, one of the punt returns. There wasn't a turnover, went out to the sideline. Yeah, it can be, but what I'm going to do once he has the ball, immediately was sending up the updates and made sure to let Paul Roberts know that Cam had gotten his hands on one, and before I even finished sending him a message, he had the other one called, and then, of course, the kickoff return later. So, yes, absolutely excellent game for Cam. So he'll be our player of game once again this season. Not his first time, it probably won't be his last time. And 2 regular season games ago, he'll have a good chance at setting Wilson single-season records for total return yards, punt return yards, punt return touchdowns, and maybe total return touchdowns overall, with now having 2 on kickoffs. But again, 49-20 final here in Lebanon was over Cedar Crest. Bulldogs improved to 3-0 in the section, and will now get to Landisville next week, take on Hempfield. And they had a bit of a shocking. I mean, I wasn't expecting what I was told.
I see we weren't expecting, but like
But the way the season's been going, it's giving me that surprise.
It's perfect. Hempfield beat Manheim Township tonight.
Yeah, 17-14, and it's in Neffsville. So Hempfield went on the road, a huge rivalry game.
After kind of getting their hearts broken last week,
Yeah.
by Cedar Crest at Hempfield.
Yeah. They go on the road and do the same thing.
Right. So,
But I mean, we've been talking about almost all season now. I feel like every week we say how crazy this year is, and it really is for grabs. Any given Friday night, you could see or hear something crazy. And once again, it's happened. Hempfield beats Township at Township, 17-14. I believe Wilson's now the only team that does not have any section losses
right.
with 2 weeks play.
Right, with 2 weeks to play,
So-
but those 2 weeks are Hempfield and
Right.
Township.
Two big games
Right.
Left.
Huge game.
for Wilson.
In front of them. I know it's crazy, but we were saying weeks ago. When we were sitting there with not the record they wanted,
Right, yeah. Sitting at
And
2-3 and everyone's disappointed.
And some people, not us, but I feel like some people, guys following, kind of thing. And just first, it was a really tough non-league schedule,
Right.
and we'll do our best. And next thing you know,
5-3. Well, obviously, the win now guarantees them continuation of the non-losing season.
most
I highly doubt if they would lose their next games, they would make the playoff and then drop below that 100 mark. I think I've gone on the record on this show to say they have to win out to even make.
right. And
I
as
don't
crazy
think
things
that's
happen, we're going to stay on top of that as one, but we'll keep an eye on those things for everybody. I think we want to, like we talked about it with McCaskey, but they were able to get things rolling tonight. Started early, but then we were able to get going. Maybe some ball didn't in that game, but they now beat Manheim Township at
and we know how difficult that has been over the last 5 or so. Hempfield is led by Cam Harbaugh at quarterback. He's a dual threat guy, very good in that position. Obviously, we know head coach George Ager, familiar with the Wilson system. He's now in his second year with the Blackness. So we will see who else they're going to throw at us.
Yeah, some of the other key returners. This is according to Jeff Reiner from his season preview. Wide receiver, defensive back, Ann Aker, outside linebacker, Caleb Elslager, wide receiver, offensive lineman, Lucas Miller, and your linebacker, have 6. An article. Guys that were 2 months have gained 8 games of experience. So you have some of that. But he talks about you return the job last year. One of those somebody got it at fall. He kind of took that job and kind of ran it. So it says the Knights have some bumper O linemen. Shocker!
Yeah, what a surprise!
Monsters out there.
I will never forget. I know this is dating. This is 8 years later, but it was 2013 in Mansfield. With Timothy Go and Johnny Ray Snyder, the younger game in John Fox, and I saw Hempfield coming out of their locker room, and they were down to the field, and the 5 linemen that walked out were all like 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", and I could not believe it. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, how are we going to win? And we were undefeated at the time. We went through the regular season, but I just couldn't believe how we could match up and beat them.
Right,
we did. Yes, if you nice the end of the game. But won the Lannisville in 2015. We got to, I believe, we continued section winning streak in action on an Alex Twyford rush touchdown, who now a volunteer in the coaching staff. He helped, I believe, set a new LL record consecutive section victories with that win at Landisville now 6 years ago. I remember that one. It ended up being one of the features on my decade
Read North Florida made a big
sack at the end, to basically end the game, to seal the game. But mentioned at the beginning, I was at the last game that the section came to an end for Van Nuys Central. Could it happen tonight? And I got to have some fun with that after the game. And those tweets are still up, and I haven't been edited on the decade recap that I did. That was one of the games that made the 10 games of the 2010s. So, all good stuff, all fun things. But yeah, after last week, I just that result was a shock to me. It really was.
They could have easily. I don't want to say this because I don't know that Florida, but that's a game where they could easily look around and that could be one turns into two. You're going to Manheim Township and we just lost to Cedar Crest.
But that rivalry game, Township, huge rivalry.
And you know what? They got their confidence back to play that much. So now they won maybe their biggest road game in a long time. I'm not an expert on Hempfield schedule.
I know.
That's probably their best road win in a while. And now all of a sudden, they've got Wilson coming to town. I don't know their schedule.
Their season's back on track.
It could be their last home game. It could be C night. They could have a chance to beat Wilton and take the section.
Hempfield beats Wilson this week. They know that they are essentially basically guaranteed a shared section title.
Yeah. Because
they know the last week Wilson and Township have to play, so one of us, Wilson or Township, will have 2 losses. Right. So Hempfield beats Wilson next week. They lock up a shared section title as long as they don't have a hiccup in the last week. But their last week opponent is going to be Penn Manor or McCaskey.
Right.
Hempfield's better than them. Flat out. I think we can say that. I think the game, now that we're not around many Cedar Crest people, I think we'd say the last week's game against Hempfield was a little bit of a mirage. Guessing Black Knights probably look ahead to Township Wilson.
Right, but you saw it. The Cedar Crest team was good enough where
if you're in a battle, that's not a team you want to be in a close battle with.
You can't let them hang around. No. Can't let them hang around. It's I kept thinking in the game when Cedar Crest would cut it to 2 scores, let's get this.
Let's get, we want to be
never know what would happen.
Comfortable.
It's they would kick off and we would run back for a touchdown. You never know what's going to happen. Let's get this back to 2 scores. And thanks to Cam, a couple times we did that.
Yeah. So it's going to be. They got to stay focused. I think that was the one big thing. The one important takeaway tonight was slow start, turnovers, and penalties.
Yeah. Now
the penalty thing, part of it was obviously their mistakes. We saw holds on the punt return. We saw false starts, and the coaching staff made player adjustments. If they made a mistake, they were taken out of the game for that series usually. There's going to be some accountability, and they start to show that. But as the game went on, honestly, I don't know what was happening with all the flags.
Yeah.
They were no longer the false start illegal procedures. They were constantly holds, and then really, I thought, egregious personal foul call that should have at least been offsetting,
right,
if not instigated by Cedar Crest.
Right.
So it's just, I wanted to, you said it to me before we started, but I've been trying to find
113.
Yeah. 11 penalties for 150 yards, just 4 for 20 for Cedar Crest.
Right.
Obviously,
and a couple of those came right away. They had some false starts right away.
That's right, they did. So for the majority of the game, side of the first half of the first quarter, Cedar Crest was not penalized.
Right.
And I know the staff was unhappy about it. They were also unhappy on the Cedar Crest long passing touchdown because the Cedar Crest receiver was out of bounds. The refs admitted he was out of bounds, but you're allowed to go out of bounds if you were forced back out, but you have to come back in within either a certain number of steps or yardage. You have to make an effort to get back in. I believe our coaches were saying it took him way too long to get back in bounds.
Right. Yeah. So, and the guy on that side was a stickler for details, so I don't know how that worked out fine. But
I don't know exactly what
It happens.
what that was about.
They were able to overcome it, but they need to clean it up because Hempfield's going to be ready.
That's the thing. They were able to overcome it this time against this opponent, or able to do that the next 2 weeks, and the answer's going to be no.
Right.
So they need to come out with a fast start, a hot start, and keep up the momentum, and then cut out the mistakes, the penalties. And then again, a few weeks earlier in the season, the first 5 weeks, 2 or 3 times we were worried about interceptions or failure to convert on fourth down in the red zone, which to a fumble turnover tonight were it's not inside the 20, inside the 30.
Yeah.
So right there, they have chances to put this game away early and make it out of hand, maybe even merciful, but they let Cedar Crest hang around, and Cedar Crest is good enough to make you pay, especially with Adrian Richards on the field.
Exactly.
And they were able to do that. But that's the next 2 weeks. Hempfield and Manheim Township are too good. You cannot start slow and continue to shoot yourself in the foot with terms of penalties. So they need a great week of practice. They need to be focused because, like you said, the only thing off the table since week 2 was beating Mifflin. All your other opportunities are still out there. You are undefeated in section play. You control your destiny. You win out. You now alone champions of the Lancaster Lebanon League. You did that before, and it's no different now, even with Hempfield Township. It just means now you most likely won't have a 2-way tie.
Right.
Because Hempfield lost to Cedar Crest last week. But don't worry about it. The team didn't celebrate their co-championship in 2018 when they shared township in Warwick. You can't find any information. I don't know that there was any kind of celebration done for a co-championship because that's not what they want. They want their own championship. And if they want to do that, they need to beat Hempfield in Landisville next week. So we've been here for about half an hour. We're going to wrap it up. I do want to see if I can put up our sponsors. So I'm going to leave the mic on, but turn us off here. Hopefully you can still hear us and go through sponsorships if this works. Sorry, first time using this. Oh, no, it's gone. There we go. Okay. Plug hours by us. We're going to have a normal show next week because this setup is not ideal. Most of the activities we could from the stadium. We didn't grab the coaches and players, which was a disappointment. But we're going to have a regular live show back in the studio Monday, October 24th at 8:30. So this is the 13th episode of 7th season, recapping Cedar Crest and previewing Hempfield. Hopefully we're done with the technical issues and we can wrap up things here. So Justin, any final thoughts before here?
No, just that there's plenty to work on. I'm glad they got the win. Time to relax tonight, ice up, and then start getting ready for him because Hempfield match at full force.
Yeah, maybe. And it might be sore, but I believe anyone left with an injury. Got ready to roll. We want to finish strong. 2 weeks left, control their own destiny. Margin for error, but just ready to take care of business. So, with that said, I think that's it. Sorry that wasn't as ideal as we had hoped it was going to be. We're going to have a lot of fun on the field, under the lights, with coaches and players. But it didn't work out that way. So maybe if we get to do this again, it will. But I think that's it. So for Justin Wrap Up, I'm Joe Mays. Until next time, remember, go Bulldogs.